The mountain air was crisp that October evening as our company retreat entered its second day. Pine Lake Resort buzzed with the forced energy of corporate team building, complete with trust falls and icebreaker games that made everyone uncomfortable. I should have known something was wrong when my husband Tyler seemed unusually eager to participate in everything. "All right, everyone, gather around for our final activity," announced Rebecca from HR, her voice echoing across the Rustic Lodge's main room. "We're going to play a little game called Assumption Junction, where we share fun facts about our colleagues." I felt my stomach tighten. Tyler had been drinking since dinner, and when he drank, his filter disappeared entirely. I caught his eye from across the circle of folding chairs, hoping he'd read my silent plea for restraint. "I'll start with something about my lovely wife here," Tyler announced, standing up with theatrical flair. The room fell silent as all 43 pairs of eyes turned toward me. Most of you probably think Rachel here is the successful marketing director, right? Well, here's something hilarious. She actually failed her college entrance exams. Twice! The silence stretched like a taut wire about to snap. My face burned with embarrassment as colleagues I'd worked with for 5 years stared at me with a mixture of shock and pity. Some looked down at their hands, clearly uncomfortable. "Tyler," I whispered, but he wasn't finished. "Oh, and get this, she tells everyone she went to Northwestern for business, but she actually started at community college. Isn't that just precious?" He laughed, a cold sound that echoed off the wooden beams. My little overachiever, always trying so hard to fit in with the big kids. The humiliation was complete. Years of carefully built professional relationships, crumbling in real time. My colleague Jennifer shot me a sympathetic look, while my boss Thomas cleared his throat awkwardly. The retreat coordinator scrambled to redirect the conversation, but the damage was done. I excused myself and walked outside onto the deck overlooking Pine Lake. The October moon cast silver ripples across the water, and for a moment I let myself imagine what it would be like to just disappear into those peaceful depths. But then I remembered the manila envelope hidden in my suitcase upstairs, the one I'd been carrying for 3 weeks, waiting for the right moment. Tyler had just given me that moment. My hands shook as I pulled out my phone and scrolled to a very specific contact. The private investigator I'd hired 2 months ago had been thorough, almost too thorough. The photos, bank statements, and hotel receipts painted a picture that would destroy Tyler's carefully constructed image. As I heard footsteps behind me, I quickly slipped the phone back into my pocket. Tyler appeared beside me, swaying slightly from the alcohol. "Come on, babe, don't be so sensitive." "It was just a joke," he slurred, reaching for my arm. "You know I love you." I really looked at him perhaps for the first time in months. The man I'd married 8 years ago had become a stranger who took pleasure in my pain. The realization hit me like the mountain air, sharp, cold, and clarifying. "You're right, Tyler," I said quietly, my voice steady despite the rage building inside me. "I shouldn't be so sensitive." He smiled, thinking he'd won. He had no idea what was coming. 3 months earlier, on a sweltering July afternoon in downtown Chicago, my world had started unraveling with a single phone call. "Mrs. Bennett? This is Patricia from First National Bank. There's been some unusual activity on your joint savings account. Could you verify a withdrawal of $47,000 made yesterday?" I nearly dropped my coffee. "I'm sorry, what withdrawal?" "The one made at our Michigan Avenue branch. The withdrawal slip shows your husband's signature, but our policy requires both account holders to be notified of withdrawals over $10,000. My hands trembled as I assured Patricia I'd look into it and hung up. Tyler was supposed to be in Cleveland on business. Michigan Avenue was nowhere near Cleveland. That evening, Tyler came home with his usual kiss on the cheek and stories about his boring sales conference. I watched him lie with the same mouth that had promised to love and cherish me. The acting was flawless almost. "How was Cleveland?" I asked, setting down his favorite dinner. "Oh, you know, same old corporate nonsense. Hotel was terrible, had to change rooms twice." He didn't even blink. The next morning, after Tyler left for work, I drove to First National. The security footage was grainy but clear enough. There was my husband, in his Navy suit, withdrawing our money at 2:17 p.m. on a Tuesday. But he wasn't alone. The woman beside him was stunning blonde, probably late 20s, wearing a designer dress that cost more than my monthly salary. She waited patiently as Tyler completed the transaction. Then they walked out together, his hand on the small of her back. I sat in my car in the bank parking lot and cried for 20 minutes. Then I called Vincent Castellano, private investigator. Jennifer from accounting had used him during her messy divorce, and she'd sworn by his discretion. I need to know what my husband is really doing, I told him over coffee at a downtown cafe 2 days later. Vincent was a weathered man in his 50s, with kind eyes that had seen too much. Mrs. Bennett, in my experience, when spouses start asking these questions, they already know the answer. They just need proof. He was right. Over the next 6 weeks, Vincent documented everything. The apartment Tyler was renting in Lincoln Park under a fake name. The woman Brittany Walsh, 26, struggling actress and part-time yoga instructor. The expensive dinners, weekend getaways to Wisconsin, even a shopping trip where Tyler bought her a bracelet that cost more than our mortgage payment. But the real bombshell came in Vincent's final report. Your husband has been systematically draining your joint accounts, Vincent explained during our last meeting. He's moved approximately $130,000 over the past 8 months. There's also this. He slid a document across the table. A lease agreement for the Lincoln Park apartment, dated 6 months ago. But it wasn't just Tyler's name on it, it was mine too. He'd forged my signature and used my credit information without my knowledge. This is identity theft, Vincent said grimly. And fraud. The lease, the bank accounts he opened in your name that you don't know about, the credit cards. He's been living a double life, using your identity and credit. I stared at the papers, my vision blurring. It wasn't just adultery, it was financial abuse, identity theft, and fraud. Tyler hadn't just broken my heart. He'd systematically destroyed my financial security while playing the role of loving husband. There's more, Vincent continued. The company retreat you mentioned? He's not planning to room with you. He's arranged for Ms. Walsh to be at a nearby hotel. Apparently, this has been planned for weeks. That night, Tyler came home with flowers and my favorite Thai food, chattering about how excited he was for our romantic getaway at Pine Lake Resort. I smiled and nodded, all while the manila envelope of evidence sat hidden in my dresser drawer. For 3 weeks, I carried that envelope everywhere, waiting. Waiting for what? I wasn't sure. The right moment, the perfect opportunity, or maybe just the courage to finally act. At the retreat, watching Tyler network and charm our colleagues, I almost felt sorry for him. He had no idea that I knew about the apartment, the money, or Brittany. He thought he was so clever, so careful. But then came game night, and his casual cruelty in front of everyone we worked with. The way he smiled after humiliating me, as if my pain was entertainment. That's when I knew exactly what I had to do. I returned to the lodge's main room 20 minutes later, Vincent's envelope tucked discreetly in my cardigan pocket. The group had moved on to charades, but the energy felt forced, like everyone was trying too hard to forget what had just happened. Tyler was in his element, acting out movie titles with exaggerated gestures, while colleagues laughed a little too loudly. He caught my eye and winked, as if we were sharing some private joke instead of him having just humiliated me in front of our entire professional network. Hey everyone, I called out, my voice carrying across the room with surprising steadiness. Before we continue, I'd like to share something about my husband Tyler. The room quieted. Tyler's smile faltered slightly, but he kept his confident posture. Since Tyler enjoys sharing personal details during games, I thought you might find this interesting. I pulled out the first photograph Tyler and Brittany walking hand in hand into the Lincoln Park apartment building. This was taken last Tuesday, while Tyler was supposedly in Cleveland for the Morrison account. The silence was deafening. Tyler's face went white, then red, then white again. Rachel, what are you? He started, but I continued. And this? I held up a bank statement. Shows the $47,000 Tyler withdrew from our joint savings 3 months ago. Coincidentally, the same day he signed a lease for an apartment I never knew existed. Jennifer gasped audibly. Thomas leaned forward in his chair. The retreat coordinator looked like she wanted to disappear. But here's my favorite part, I said, pulling out the final document. Tyler forged my signature on multiple financial documents, opened credit cards in my name, and has been funding his affair using identity theft. I have a private investigator's report documenting 18 months of fraud. Tyler finally found his voice. You're crazy. You're having some kind of breakdown. Am I? I interrupted, my voice growing stronger. Because I also have hotel receipts, restaurant bills, and photographs spanning the last 8 months. Should I continue, or would you prefer to explain to everyone how my community college education suddenly seems less embarrassing than your felony charges? The room erupted in shocked murmurs. Tyler looked around desperately for support, but every face showed disgust or pity, and none of it was directed at me. You have 15 minutes to call Brittany and tell her the retreat's over, I said calmly. I've already contacted our attorney and the police. The fraud charges will be filed Monday morning. Tyler stumbled toward me, his confidence completely shattered. Rachel, please, we can work this out. She means nothing. No, Tyler. I stood up, feeling taller than I had in years. What means nothing is 8 years of marriage to a man who stole my identity to fund his lies. What means nothing is your opinion of my education, my background, or my worth. I turned to address the room. I apologize for disrupting the retreat, but I thought you should know why Tyler will likely be unavailable for future company events. The walk back to my room felt like floating. Behind me, I could hear Tyler's desperate attempts to control the narrative, but his voice sounded small and distant. In my room, I called Vincent to confirm the police report would be filed first thing Monday. Then I called my sister in Portland, who immediately offered me her couch and a job reference. As I packed my suitcase, I found myself humming something I hadn't done in months. Through the window, Pine Lake sparkled under the moonlight, and for the first time in years, the future looked bright. 6 months later, I stood in my new office in Portland, Oregon, looking out at the Willamette River. The morning mist was just lifting, revealing the city I now called home. My phone buzzed with a text from my sister. Coffee after work? I want to hear about the promotion. The promotion. Marketing director at Greenspace Solutions, a renewable energy startup that actually valued authenticity over appearances. It felt surreal how quickly life could change when you stopped accepting the unacceptable. My assistant knocked and peeked in. Rachel, your 10 a.m. is here. And there's someone from Chicago Tribune on line 2 something about a follow-up interview. The Chicago Tribune. 3 months ago, they'd run a story about corporate fraud and identity theft, using Tyler's case as a cautionary tale. The reporter had been particularly interested in how companies could better protect employees from financial abuse by family members. Tyler's story had become a warning to others. Tell Tribune I'll call back this afternoon, I said, and send him my 10 a.m. The meeting was with potential investors, and as I presented our quarterly growth projections, I felt the confidence that had been slowly rebuilding since that night at Pine Lake. No one here knew about community college or my embarrassing background. They only cared about results, and I delivered those consistently. During lunch, I checked my phone and found an unexpected message from Jennifer, my former colleague. Saw the Tribune article. Proud of you. By the way, Tyler got terminated last week. Apparently, clients started questioning the company's integrity after the fraud charges became public. I deleted the message without replying. Tyler's consequences weren't my concern anymore. That evening, I met my sister Megan at our favorite coffee shop in the Pearl District. The autumn air carried the scent of rain and fresh possibilities. You look different, Megan observed, studying my face across the small table. Lighter, somehow. I feel different, I admitted. It's strange I spent so many years trying to prove I belonged, trying to be perfect enough for Tyler's approval. I forgot that the only approval I needed was my own. Megan reached across and squeezed my hand. Mom will be proud, you know. She always said you were stronger than you realized. As we walked home through the quiet Portland streets, I reflected on how that horrible night at the retreat had actually been a gift. Tyler's public humiliation had forced me to stop hiding, stop pretending, and stop accepting less than I deserved. My phone buzzed with an email from Greenspace CEO. Rachel, the board was impressed with today's presentation. We'd like to discuss expanding your role to include the Seattle office. Interested? Seattle. A bigger challenge, more responsibility, a chance to build something meaningful. The old Rachel would have hesitated, wondered if she was qualified enough, smart enough, worthy enough. The new Rachel typed back immediately. Absolutely. When do we start? 6 months ago, Tyler had tried to diminish me by exposing my past. Instead, He'd freed me to build a future where my community college education wasn't a source of shame, it was proof of my determination. Where my background wasn't a weakness, it was evidence of my resilience. As I fell asleep that night in my cozy Portland apartment, I realized that Tyler had been right about one thing. I was always trying hard to fit in with the big kids. I just never realized I'd been one of the big kids all along.